years. But with this series of saw, when working with this series of saw, it is not necessary to tear down the chain brake when you rebuild this series of saw. And there's a lot of videos out there, guys that they're doing a good job, but sometimes they do a lot of unnecessary things. That'll save you a little bit of time. You don't have to you don't have to take the brake handle off, any of the chain brake. You don't even have to remove the cover. Leave that on. Obviously, this bar stud has to come out. That's one of the things that retains the block in the chassis. Right here is where that stud comes through, and so leave the chain brake intact. Another thing, advice from Brad, remove the ignition coil, and the block will jump out of there when you do that, and also it will jump back in. Before you put the sealant on the block itself, on the engine pan, get the crank piston in the block, and to be specific, the piston with the rings on it, connecting rod bearing, wrist pin bearing, crank bearings, everything completely inside there before you put the sealant on it. The sealant to use is Eccl, the German genuine article, not anything else, although there are other products. Honda Bond, Yamaha makes one, 3Bond is another one, but Eccl, I am told, is what they come from the factory with. It's a German product used with BMW, Volkswagen, Porsche, and Stihl. But anyway, those are a couple of tips and tricks. A lot of folks talk about this being a difficult series of saw to work on. It is, I would say, not. But those are a few tricks that'll save you a little time. Take your time, clean everything up. Also, something that I repeatedly run into is the talk about the plastic cage bearings, and sad to say that is the case on both series. The O series, the 029, 31, 39, has the twist caps, the old twist caps. The new series has the flip caps. Both series have plastic cage bearings, and when they go, the plastic goes, they come apart. The spacing on the balls is not kept, and engine bearings go down. So that is the case. These were replaced with 9-ball steel cage bearings, new piston, new rings, and I think that's it. One more tip that I'll give you when you disassemble these saws, those of you who do this for a living already know this, but lay your components out in a series. A lot of people will just throw everything in a box, but all the fasteners are pretty much the same on this saw, but all your components, lay them out in groups as they come apart, and they'll go right back together. Take your time. Don't try to force it if it's not going smooth, and things will be okay. As far as that sealant goes, once the piston rings are inside the cylinder, apply a thin bead. There is a groove in the engine pan. Put that stuff in the engine pan and set it all together and start installing it. Also, I Loctite those studs that go through the block after installation. A drip on the outside, clean and degrease everything. There are your pan bolts, and they come through the block right there. And that's about all I have. Obviously, when you put the coil back in, set the magneto gap according to factory specs. If need be, take pictures of everything as you take it apart, and you'll be just fine. Keep everything clean and neat. Oil everything up. Don't dry start the saw. Oil everything up, and make sure that the saw is 4-stroking in the cut. Now, these saws from the factory are very lean to pass emissions. Having undergone several factory service training classes myself, we are taught to tune to the leanest possible running condition, and that per EPA instructions. Of course, this is beginning to fade out now with auto tune and fuel injection, etc. And this is the old non-strato saw, the 9.1 and 9.2 series, the 291 and 391 and 392, etc. Begin to be stratocharged. So this is